Dang. You know you just gunned down a civilian, right? One more mistake like that and this mission's finished. Damn it, Fisher. We can't keep covering up these civilian corpses. Maybe you weren't the agent we were looking for. You and this mission are finished. Fisher, have you gone insane? The mission's over.
2002, Splinter Cell was Ubisoft's answer to the massively successful Metal Gear Solid, which was released a few years prior. Fast forward a few years, and my older brother returns from a $5 bin raid at GameStop. He popped that bad boy into our Xbox Original, and we were instantly hooked by that opening trailer.
You know what you need to do.
My other brother and I watched him play this game for hours, way past our bedtime. Like other hidden gems discovered in the $5 bin, we played this series obsessively for years, all the way up until the game that basically killed the franchise. However, unlike games like Oblivion or KOTOR, this was a game that I didn't really come back to or keep up with for a while. I don't know, maybe it's not backwards compatible or something, I've never really checked, but either way, it doesn't really matter. Well, recently, I decided to download it from Steam and see if it was as good as I remember. Before I get in too deep, there are a few things that should help put this into context. This is a stealth game, first and foremost. That means if you don't like games that require a lot of sitting around and waiting, this probably isn't going to be for you. It's also been ages since I've played a new game, so that means that my perspective is going to be a little bit different on these older ones. The gaming landscape over the last few years has just sucked any and all hope from my soul, so I just don't get new games. I really can't compare it to anything new, so if there's something that I like that everyone thinks, like, yeah, every new game has that now, well, I don't play new games, so. Starting off with the story, pretty basic, pretty straightforward. There's a dictator in the Middle East somewhere, and he's made threats against the US, he's causing blackouts, and your job is to thwart his plans from behind the scenes without anyone knowing that you exist. Then it turns out there's a mole in the government, and now the dictator has access to nuclear bombs. But then you stop him and you save the day, even saving some hostages along the way. You find out a lot on the missions by hacking into computers or interrogating people, and then it's just all summarized by news footage, which is actually not a bad framing technique for the time, I don't think. Now take this as a positive or a negative, but compared to Metal Gear Solid, it's a very simple story to follow. Personally, I like that. I like knowing what's going on. But honestly, that's really all I could ask for a game like this anyways. Just give me the basics of what's going on and let me punch people in the back of the head. One of the things that I love about any piece of media is humor. Even if it's a drama or a horror movie, people have senses of humor. They just do, unless they're... But it's a hard balance, because if there aren't normal conversations of people just chatting and making jokes between themselves during the big story, it just doesn't feel real to me. That doesn't mean these funny moments should be interrupting big climactic scenes like...
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
But it's almost always possible to include little arguments or sarcastic quips that make the characters and situations feel more genuine. Splinter Cell does this very well, in my opinion.
I thought the kitchen was closed.
It's a special order for Colonel Kobaishvili.
Ah, excellent. May I?
Please.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My wife doesn't want to send the kids to school tomorrow.
You spilled your coffee.
Christ. In fact, I'm supposed to call her. I gotta run.
All right, I'm going for a smoke. You gonna be around later?
No, I'm taking off.
Hey, you spilled coffee. Somebody's gonna have to clean that up.
I gotta run, Mitch. Take it easy.
I'd like to talk to your superior.
Perhaps I can help you, sir.
By fetching your superior.
I'm all there is. How can I help you?
I'd like to register a complaint.
Then you'll have to ask at the desk to your right.
Very well.
May I help you?
You're the same cop.
Yes, but this is the public relations desk.
Fine. I would like to register a complaint.
Of course, sir. If you could just have a seat until somebody's ready to help you.
You've got to be kidding me.
I could easily have you arrested, sir.
The use of lighting in this game was one of the most mesmerizing and enticing parts when I first saw it. Even now, it's so cool to slowly back into the shadows and watch Sam disappear. You can still see his walkie-talkie on his back and his goggles, but you have to allow for a little suspension of disbelief. But even still, I just had a lot of fun with that. Every time I saw a dark area, I would walk into it even with my night vision goggles off because it was cool to watch. I also really liked the maps. I loved how every level looked unique and special. Throughout the game, you see the area in and around a Georgian police station, a Chinese embassy, an offshore oil rig, and even the CIA headquarters. You could tell just how much time and effort the devs put into each room in each level. Just when you think you've got the map figured out, you open a door and you never know what's going to be on the other side. Usually just getting to the actual mission area is a trek in and of itself. You got somebody at the start of the game saying,
"Okay, pal, we're here. This is as close as we can safely get in a vehicle. I can't overemphasize how sensitive this mission is."
That means getting to the rooftops through a Chinese restaurant or racing through a fan that's been shut off for just a few seconds and hoping that it doesn't turn on before you make it. It's those little details that I really appreciate about each map. Now, I really like the freedom that Splinter Cell allows you. It may not be open world, but that's fine. Not every game has to be, or even really should be. However, that being said, you get a ton of freedom in this game. For the most part, you can decide how do you want to approach each mission. Do you want to patiently wait and study guards' patterns, sticking to the shadows, leaving everyone blissfully unaware that you are ever there? Or leave everybody with the headache of their life when you're not allowed to kill anybody? Now, this isn't exactly taken to the extreme like in Hitman or the later Metal Gear games, but the option is pretty much always there. Personally, if I found that I got through a room completely clean and undetected, I would reload and do it again and take down each guy, Arkham style. Maybe it's because I just enjoy the challenge of seeing how much I could get away with. Maybe it's a touch of sadism, I don't know, but it's not like any of these guys are real anyway, so screw it. Just whack 'em and their dogs. One option that you probably would have for every level, and that I never tried myself, would be to just let everyone set off every alarm in the level, because that way every level turns into this great big firefight. And honestly, if I were playing Hitman, that's what I do every single time. But in Splinter Cell, these guys freaking hurt. Either way, I loved it every time Lambert said,
"You're fully authorized to use lethal force. Fifth freedom with everybody."
But honestly, there's a lot of little things that I love. I mentioned the attention to detail before. For example, you pick up data sticks along the way that you either get from computers or guys' satchels, and they just have conversations between the two that kind of build on the lore. Or if you wait for a little bit, you can listen to different interactions between the guards.
Last week it was those turrets. This week it's wall mines.
So, I use the tools they give me.
You obsess over them.
You have to admit, these are cool.
Yes, but if we plant too many, it's dangerous.
They're supposed to be dangerous. They're mines, for God's sake.
Or, when shortly sending somebody to the afterlife, you could watch their body heat slowly disappear. I love getting creative with the different gadgets and equipment as I try to advance through the levels as well.
We already checked this hallway.
We might have missed something. We'll check it again.
How could we have heard? Intruders!
And although there wasn't always an opportunity for this, there was always something so satisfying about a clean aerial takedown. That was the good. Let's get into the bad. There was a slight technical issue, and I was able to find a fix for it pretty quickly on Reddit, but it was annoying nonetheless. The fact that enemies' flashlights and spotlights didn't show up on screen got me killed, or it set off an alarm more times than I could count. And that wasn't the only thing that bugged me either in terms of being seen in the darkness. If I aggroed a guard at any point, they would seemingly gain instant night vision and shoot me with precision accuracy, even if I was still completely in the dark and they didn't have a flashlight. Granted, they would only really shoot at my last known position, but moving was often difficult because of their seemingly heightened hearing. It would have been much better if they just randomly shot into the darkness, because there were times when they'd just see a light getting shot out and they'd instantly know where it came from and shoot me. Speaking of aggroing guards, it was very easy to do so. Now that in and of itself isn't a bad thing. I mean, get good, am I right? Really, my greater complaint has to do with the fact that I had to revert to my most recent save constantly because of how much of a pain it was to deal with enemies alerted to my presence. This became so repetitive at points that I didn't even feel like playing the game anymore. It's not that I felt angry. I wasn't about to rage quit or anything. It was genuinely boring. Having to do the same thing 50 times, it just wasn't fun. Now, trial and error is the nature of stealth games like these, so maybe that's more of a me problem, but it was something that got old for me at multiple points. And given how alert these guards were, and how easy it was for them to spot me at times, I was surprised that they didn't give the same attention to dead dogs. Dogs were a new obstacle that was introduced in the first level that you infiltrate the Chinese embassy, but they are incredibly easy to deal with. I just sniped them from a distance and move on. I could even shoot them right next to their handler and he wouldn't even flinch. Compare this to how they react when you shoot one of their compatriots and you realize that they aren't consistent with what alerts them. I mean, they freak out more at a light getting shot out than their dog getting shot in the face. There are also a few times when the game would build up to a major action sequence and you would have to fight off a dozen men or more, all alerted to your presence. This would be fun in an action game or beat 'em up like the Arkham games or GTA, but in a game genre that typically punishes these types of situations, it was incredibly frustrating. Especially in the penultimate level that required you to both fend off multiple waves of terrorists and also defend American and Chinese hostages in 2 separate rooms. Even though I knew this was coming up and set up wall mines and use grenades to thwart them, it still took so many tries to get past this part. It made me wonder why the devs would include these types of moments in a game that was not meant for them. The last of my complaints are pretty minor. You saw from that intro, Sam doesn't always grab onto the ledges like he should, causing you to fall to your death. The game would also glitch out sometimes, and a path would be blocked, so I'd have to refresh it and hope that the way forward would be present this time. And aerial takedowns had to be perfectly timed to work, as the hitboxes were incredibly small. But again, those are pretty small complaints. But honestly, the biggest complaint of all for this game was that pistol. Yeah, the pistol was just awful.
Hello? Who's there?
But despite all of its flaws, dated graphics, and anything else people could complain about with this game, I still love what it represents. A time in which publishers cared about their games. Growing up, the only real complaints people had about video games were either bad graphics or how sports games and Call of Duty were basically the exact same every year. This was a time when PlayStation and Xbox were really battling it out to see who could produce the best exclusives, and innovative ideas were rewarded. You could look forward to every new release in a series and know that the devs are going to knock it out of the park. There were no loot crates, $1,000 skins, NFTs, live service games, or anything else designed to make publishers money at the expense of the consumer. Just look at the state of companies like Ubisoft, Bethesda, and Bungie. Hell, we only get one Star Wars game every few years ever since LucasArts shut down, and it's pretty much always a guarantee that it's going to be a buggy mess at release. You get the sense that with Splinter Cell, there was a passionate team given all the support they needed to put out the best game possible. And they did it. They made an immersive, suspenseful, satisfying spy game that brought us one of the most iconic characters in all of gaming. Splinter Cell may be old and dated, but it was, and still is, fun. At the time, most games were. They were anticipated. People paid to be swept away into a new world, and now they pay purely out of addiction. I hope the industry recovers. I'd love to experience that feeling that I got from the $5 bin at GameStop, knowing that I was about to embark on a new journey. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I know this was kind of a shorter one. Ironically enough, it took me a long time to make because I wanted to beat the game before making it. I just realized I didn't have as much to say about this one. But, you know, either way, I hope you enjoyed it. I put a lot of work into it. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, leave a comment. Thanks.